Okay, hi. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Gemini Full Moon webinar. We have been experiencing the 3 days preceding the full moon. It is a question of 3 keynotes. The keynote of love, the keynote of resurrection, and the keynote of contact. And we are now approximately within the 12-hour period preceding the full moon. Another 2 hours will bring us to that point. So technically we are still within the preparation of the keynote of contact. When it comes to the keynote of love, it is hierarchical love, the love of the soul, the impersonal love, which is harmless and which very interestingly realizes itself to be everywhere. This is interesting because Gemini is very connected with the idea of omnipresence. It is the 3rd sign of the zodiac, connected therefore not only with the 2nd ray, but with the 3rd. So Gemini has this quality of ubiquity, capable of being in all places and realizing that the consciousness is everywhere to be found. The keynote of resurrection, very powerful, because Gemini is associated with the 7th initiation, which is the resurrection. It is the initiation of love and wisdom, and Gemini represents both love and wisdom in this instance. It is the resurrection of the consciousness out of the dense physical vehicle of the planetary logos and solar logos into the cosmic ethers, which are connected with all the air signs, including Gemini. So we begin to live and breathe in a lesser way than the 7th initiation, of course, but we begin to live and breathe upon the cosmic ethers where our true spiritual life begins. As far as contact goes, it is the great sentiency, the outreach of the 2nd ray, touching all, aware of all, simultaneously seeing, recognizing, and experiencing all, impressible by all factors. So it is Gemini is a major telepathic sign. We are dealing also now with World Invocation Day. I think I've lost track of things a little bit up here in Lapland, but it's a Sunday. It should be a good World Invocation Day if it is, or tomorrow would be just fine as well, when the great invocation, the great mantra of light and power, is spoken constantly around the clock to build up a steady invocation towards those higher energies which will redeem the world. Basically, as we know, it's our greatest tool for invoking, or rather evoking, the reappearance of the Christ. So if you are in a position where you can sound the great invocation hourly or do so in a group, this would be a very good thing to do. Here we have, we have the keynote of Gemini. The word is really recognize. I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. This is the relationship between ourselves as a soul and ourselves as the soul in incarnation within the personality. But we have to take the position of focusing as a soul in order to fulfill this particular mantra. The other self is our lower self, and we stand within the egoic nature, and notice that our interest in and participation in the lower self is being reduced, and the sort of lunar light of the our lower form, the personality, is waning, while we feel the intensification of our true nature, which is the soul nature. We are both Castor and Pollux. Pollux is the light of the soul, the power of the soul, and Castor is actually, interestingly, a six-fold object, 3 pairs of binary stars, which represents very well the 1 and the 7. So, in a way, Gemini somehow represents the spirit in the midst of 6 different expressions of itself. In any case, we have to take the higher position and ride the Antikarana into an identification as the soul, and to see our instrument as simply that, and no longer relating to our instrument, of course, in love. There is that communication in soul love for the personality and aspiring personality love for the soul, and this will bring about that vertical type of rapport which will facilitate the state of soul infusion. That's the first part of the Antikarana, and Gemini also, in the second part of the Antikarana, is ruling the fusion of the triad with the soul-infused personality, and eventually brings about the fusion of spirit and soul as well. So all of the aspects of our nature can be bound together under this great second ray sign, the sign in which a seventh-degree initiate like the Christ, at least partially so, reaches a great consummation, as he did apparently in 1943, perhaps under Gemini, another phase of the 7th initiation. I'm inclined to think so. We have the Jafra symbol here. I hope it's large enough for you to see. We have the male and the female. We have the Ida and the Pingala. We have the sun and the moon. We have the great dualities and the caduceus rising to a type of union which will make eventually of the human being a type of angel. We rise to the feet of the solar angel. So many of the human beings will be traveling the path to Sirius to become solar angels. The angels come in a way from Gemini. It's a kind of a gate for the angels, just the way the animal aspect of ourselves comes from Sagittarius. Here I feel we should really have a kind of reversal. I feel the unicorn should be over here with the sun, and the lion should be over here, in this case, with the lunar nature. Although the lion is put there because of the sun, it really represents, in this case, the king of beasts or the personality, whereas the unicorn represents the soul. The versatile mind is here, but it is the lower mind, the monkey mind, so to speak, the unstable, restless mind, which has to be subdued, and that can be done very well in Gemini, which eventually leads to great mental stability rather than the constant fluctuations. There is a fusion of dragon power here, uniting in a divine hermaphrodite. We see on the top of the diagram where the male and female, Hermes and Aphrodite in this case, are fused together. This makes us an angelic aspect of the solar logos eventually. Interestingly enough, I recall that Gemini can be involved not only at the first initiation and the second as well, but at the 4th initiation. And this symbolizes the fusing of the human and Deva kingdoms which occur at that time. At least a great harmonization between them, which is the result of the 4th initiation. The polarity issue is solved, the problem of sex is solved, though on a higher level. I think we must learn to resolve the dualities. This is a key factor for us, and Gemini puts together all the dualities. The majority of zodiacal dualities or oppositions are resolved by Gemini, and in the same way, the various cleavages in our system can be fused by Mercury and by Gemini, bringing all things into right relationship. And above all, let us have the brotherhood which should be existing between soul and personality, and finally a brotherhood which should be existing between the monad itself, the pure spirit, expressed through the spiritual triad, and then the fusion there with our soul-infused personality. So it is the high point in many ways of the love energy in the higher interlude. Wesak is more an expression of the will, and there is a type of third-ray creativity, the will to create, coming under the Aries festival. So here is the festival of the Christ, appealing, representing humanity before Shambhala, in cooperation with the Buddha, the two great brothers, one of the East and one of the West. It is a great, a festival of great appeal, where we are calling for the descent of shambhalic love into humanity. The Christ appeals to the Father for the redemption of humanity and the uplift of humanity. He himself becomes, in a way, the great invocation. The Christ is that invocation, and he is invoking on behalf of all humanity. So the powers of love are released, the forces of reconstruction are released, and we know how much of a building sign, the building energy, the second ray, is the great building, form-building, pattern-making energy. We have a chance now to enter into true loving and right relationships at this Gemini festival. Here is the beautiful image that Francis Donald has provided for us, and we certainly see the two here. He has some notes. Certainly seems, just from the first glance, that the one who is, well, I should not speak, but it seems that the soul is the visible entity here. Let us see what he says. This is actually a fairly technical explanation involving a discussion of mudras, chakras, and glands. He tells us Gemini rules the hands, thus the spiritual hand gestures called mudras are especially relevant to this sign. We see that operating here is a significant mudra, and here as well. Gemini also rules the etheric or vital body, making the pran mudra, used to promote the circulation of prana in the etheric body, a quintessentially Geminian gesture. Yes, along with Aquarius and Uranus, Mercury, and Gemini, these are the factors, both planetary and zodiacal, which relate to the vitalization of the etheric body. This is borne out by the form of this mudra. The raised first and second fingers indicate duality and proclaim the symbol of Gemini, while the three remaining fingers describe a circle suggesting circulation. Let us look at that. Here are the two fingers of duality, and here is the aspect of this mudra which suggests circulation. Gemini and Aquarius, both of them involved in what we have been calling the divine circulatory flow. In this month's image, says Francis, the freedom of the two, that's the name of the image, the freedom of the two, the soul is seen stimulating the primary triangle of centers in the mind and brain of its personality reflection by means of this mudra. With regard to this triangle, the Tibetan tells us the pineal, pituitary, and carotid glands are objective correspondences of the three energy centers through which the soul controls his physical vehicle. Where the relation is close between the three glands, as is increasingly the case where disciples are concerned, a triangle of circulating energies is always established. This is from the Rays and the Initiations 431. Let's look at it again. Okay. Okay, and we see the three centers that are stimulated within the brain, the three glands, the pineal, pituitary, and carotid, being stimulated by the agena focus of the soul. The presence of the monad, indicated by the triangularly enclosed eye, reminds us that the soul is the vehicle, the triangle, for the monad, the eye, and that in Gemini this energy can be channeled through the hands. A very important synthesis. Let's look at that. And we see the eye within the palm of the hand here. I do believe the eye within the triangle, and there is this alignment which makes the hand so important in this transmission and in all factors of esoteric healing where Gemini is keenly involved. Number and geometry, the six-pointed star. In this third sign, the major sign of duality, any speculation concerning the relevant geometry must include a consideration of the interrelationship of the numbers 2 and 3. For example, the Tibetan tells us Gemini forms with each of the pairs of opposites in the zodiac a third factor, powerfully influencing the other two constellations, and thus forms with them certain great zodiacal triangles. For instance, Aries, Libra, Gemini, Taurus, Scorpio, Gemini. As for Gemini and Sagittarius, it is synthesized by Pisces, he tells us. When we consider the six zodiacal axes as six synthesized potencies, we can visualize Gemini, the agent of this fluid synthesis, standing at the center of a six-pointed star. The Tibetan tells us the opposites eternally remain from the point of view of human reason, but to the initiate whose intuition is functioning, they constitute but six great potencies because he has achieved the freedom of the two, as it is sometimes called. And we understand that the relationship between soul and personality is one of bondage when we come to the sign Pisces, but Pluto cuts the thread binding the two, and Gemini reestablishes the relationship, however, in a state of freedom. DK describes another demonstration of the six-pointed star. Six forces, raised 1 through 6, meet in Gemini, and for this reason, the double triangle is one of the subjective symbols of this sign, indicating again the essential dualism of this sign. These are important occult factors, and we thank Francis for bringing them to our attention. Finally, this star symbolizes the triangle of the soul, which is the vehicle for the threefold expression of the monad, Atma Buddhi Manas, overlaying the triangle of the threefold personality. This represents the essential Geminian duality. So not only as the pillars, but as triangles themselves in dual formation, however, we might say in synthesized dual formation. I think of the seventh initiation in a way as that central point with the six-pointed star surrounding it. And it's a love-wisdom initiation which brings together all of the other six. As for the three glands, stimulation of the glands is an effect of the activation of the etheric head centers, which are ruled by Gemini. Yes, and I would say, yes, by Gemini and by Vulcan as well here. Vulcan having much to do, interestingly, with the etheric body. The eye of the Father, representing the will aspect and monadic consciousness, is associated with the thousand-petaled lotus, and through it, the pineal gland, upper left in this month's image. Here we are. Let's see. I'll get to it. Upper left, this, okay. The pineal gland, yes, upper left in this month's image. DK tells us the downflow of egoic energy, the result of the awakening of the centers through meditation and spirituality of life, impinges upon the pineal gland, and in the course of years gradually increases its secretion, enlarges its form, and starts it into a new cycle of activity. This downflow is depicted in the freedom of the two. We have these interrelationships between different higher and lower factors within our system, and eventually, of course, between the monad itself and all that represents the material aspect. The pituitary gland, the upper right in the image, associated with the action center, is related to the right eye, the eye of the sun, and corresponds to the love-wisdom aspect, buddhi, and the hierarchy. When both the pineal and the pituitary gland become active, a radiant magnetic field, which DK calls the light of the inner sun, becomes the directing agent for all the activities of man upon the physical plane. And this is very closely related to the magical process and to the radiation of that central command post in the center of the etheric brain, involving the pineal gland as well. Finally, he brings us to the carotid gland, the lower point of the image. Let's look at this. Here is the pituitary, here is the carotid, and here's the pineal. Okay, this carotid gland is associated with the alto major center and is related to the left eye, the eye of the mother, and corresponds to the third aspect of intelligent activity. DK tells us energy from the spirit aspect. The first or father aspect pours down to the head center, associated with the pineal gland, to the ajna, associated with the pituitary, combining personality energy with soul energy, and then by an act of will, it is projected down the spinal column via the alta major center, which conditions the carotid gland. We can see how Gemini is linking up all factors to be found within the human energy system. This willful projecting of the energy down into the alta major center must bridge a gulf. And Gemini is a bridge builder here, a gulf associated with that found between the plane of the ego and the lower point of the triad, which must be bridged by the building of the antikarana. And DK tells us that when the monastic center is vibrating forcefully, then the alta major center and the head center via the throat center can be united. And there is also that gap, we are told, a kind of a lower reflection of the gap upon the mental plane between the highest part of the spine and the lowest part of the skull. That too must be bridged. Gemini's esoteric ruler, Venus. Woven into the fabric of this robe is the image. In this image is a pattern that represents the cyclic movement of Venus as seen from the earth. Let's look at that. Okay. Here we see these reflections of the cyclic movement woven into the pattern of the robe worn by the soul, that which represents the soul. Gemini's hierarchical ruler, the earth. Zoom in for a closer look. Well, I better not. But you can do that because Francis has sent this to you, and it will be well worth a study. This pattern represents the link between these planets, and thus indicates something of the nature of the relationship between soul and personality. Really, when you think about Mercury, Venus, and the Earth, we have a powerful triangle which has to do with the unification of mind, emotions, and ether within the human being and upon our planet. DK tells us Venus is the Earth's alter ego and its true supplementary and complementary planet. You have thus established a double dual relationship, that of Gemini itself, the two brothers, and that of the Earth and Venus. So we are reminded of the especially close relationship between Venus and the Earth when we study Gemini. This is the esoteric and hierarchical rulers of Gemini. Gemini related to the etheric body, it is the custodian of conditioning energy and the intermediary between soul and body, and these are the two allied brothers. Okay, and Francis closes his notes with the final observation, fluidity, recognition of duality, soul control. Those three words. These are the keynotes of this sign. Fluidity, recognition of duality, soul control. These are the keynotes and should be the keynote of your life. For whether you are in this sign, in this life, it has to sometime and many times conditioned your experience, and the results are marked in the life of the advanced disciple. Thank you, Francis, for this excellent image and the description of it in your notes. Certainly, as we look at this image, the theme of I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self I grow and glow, becomes very vivid for us, very vivid. Okay. Now we will move into our meditation. And this meditation is lengthy. It includes sections from the last sermon of the Buddha, which we are told the Christ preaches before the assembled hierarchy at the time of the Gemini full moon, and the various stanzas of the great invocation are intoned by the Christ in the hierarchy on the preceding days. So we have many things coming together now, the Gemini full moon with its so important preparatory period, and the Venus transit over the face of the sun in the sign Gemini, occurring just a day and a half after the full moon experience, a high point of angelic influence, a very potent time of solar angelic communion, and a time when, in a way, I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self I grow and glow. That can be spoken almost by the spirit, which the sun represents. Because in the face of the sun, which represents the spirit, there is a kind of waning of the soul's self. So in favor of the glory of the spirit, and that can be one of our major realizations which can come to us during this important time. Now we will find ourselves in our meditative state. Excuse me. And we will achieve poise, which will allow us a rapport with our higher energies, and that poise can be strongly associated with the verticality of the Gemini glyph. We withdraw our consciousness inward from the personality and its vehicles, recognizing the etheric physical vehicle, but knowing that we are not that vehicle. It is our instrument. Recognizing the sentient vehicle, the sensitive vehicle, the astral vehicle of desire and emotion, of attraction and repulsion, but recognizing as well that it is our instrument. For the time being, we are not that vehicle. And recognizing the mind as well, which by now is becoming still, the lower mind. We do not allow it to change rapidly and to obscure the truth. And we are the observer, who is really the monad in extension. We are pure being, possessing consciousness, aware of our instrument, but knowing that essentially we are other than the instrument. We recognize ourselves as the soul. A unit of life and consciousness. And we feel ourselves coming into a world of spiritual light, revealing loving relationship, the spiritual love fusing us all together as one soul, in spiritual sacrificial will and power, the urge to give, the great soul urge. And our lesser instrumentation is fading out, and this new world of the soul, our truer world, is fading in. And it is as if we stand within the causal body, surrounded by color, sound, virtue, quality, truly the higher self. And we find ourselves merging together into that collection of points of perception we can call the group soul. Together we are merging into the group soul as the group soul. Merging in soul with the new group of world servers, those points of loving light, serving their fellow human beings all over the world, touching them in soul as if they are ourselves. Merging in soul with the men and women of goodwill, of whom there are millions. Somehow knowing them in soul, familiarly, fusing with them, as if all of these souls are right here being the only place there is. And fusing with the souls, all human souls, those who are in the body, those who are out of the body, recognizing the one soul of all humanity. Wherever there is a human being, there we are. Wherever there is a human soul, there we are. All included, none excluded. Via the great linking second ray inclusive quality of Gemini. Naught is but me. The one being possessing the one consciousness, aware through billions of points of perception. And yet, the many points of perception are really one point of perception. We are coming together at a point of mental tension. It is fed by the power of the group soul, the will of the group soul. We are focusing together with focused, immovable will at a point of mental tension, strengthened by the ray aspects of the will to initiate, the will to unify, the will to evolve, the will to harmonize, the will to act, the will to cause, the will to express. We are as if the soul-infused group personality, focused at a point of mental tension, reinforced by the presence of the soul, the will of the soul. We reach in imagination upward from this point of tension, using each of us a bridge of light, each of us a bridge of light consisting of our soul ray quality and our personality ray quality, those qualities represented by colors, 2 colors for each of us. Red for ray 1, indigo ray 2, green ray 3, yellow ray 4, orange ray 5, rose color ray 6 or light blue, violet ray 7. Each of us feeling the quality of our bridge. our bridge reaching as if upward or inward towards the center. Touching the points of planetary life, the monastic permanent atom of the abstract mind, the Buddhic permanent atom of the intuition, the Atmic permanent atom of the spiritual will. Our bridge rises as if through these, touching these higher fields, all of our bridges together, cone-like, multicolored, all colors, all qualities, touching imaginatively the triad together. And ending in the symbol for the monad, we consider it the blue-white diamond, the symbol of the spirit, the great vitalizing center, and Gemini carrying that vitality down the Antikarana and into every aspect of our nature. Whether we move inward toward the center of the sphere or upward cone-like towards the blue-white diamond, we are united in imaginative rapport with the spirit, with the triad. And across this triad, across this bridge, we are going to project a line, a vivid white line of living fire. This will be an act of the first ray. And we will think to ourselves as we project in a rapier-like line of living fire. We will think the word of power of the second ray. I see the greatest light. So our mind repeats the affirmation, and we sound the Om together while the mind affirms, I see the greatest light. We sense the indigo quality, which characterizes the bridge as a whole, the group bridge. Linking our highest nature with our lowest, making it possible for the highest ethers to enter the lower ethers, an exchange of substances, bringing great vitality to the entire mechanism, to the soul consciousness, until we are inspired by the Spirit. The fusion of spirit, soul, and personality, body, vivid, electrified. I see the greatest light. This is the world in which the hierarchy is always focused. And our kinship with them should be stronger now because of our alignment. We sense something of the livingness which is their normal life. And we offer our salutations, our solidarity with the great lords of hierarchy. And since the Buddha is also involved with the Christ in this festival, we shall salute him as well. So each of us, and as a group, honor, salute, affirm the connection with the elder brothers. Salutations to the Lord Buddha, the Lord of Light, the Lord of Wisdom. Salutations to the Christ, the Master of all Masters. Salutations to the triangle of masters with whom we work most closely. Salutations to the Master Moria, the head of all esoteric schools and organizations. Salutations to the Master Kutumi, the Chohan of the second Ray Ashram, the Christ of the coming age of Capricorn. salutations to the Master Jual Kul, who has brought forward for us the great trans-Himalayan teaching. Salutations to the entire spiritual hierarchy of our planet, the Great White Brotherhood, the Society of Organized and Illumined Minds, the heart center of our planet. In this alignment, we imaginatively raise our thought to Shambhala, the center where the will of God is known, and with deepest reverence and in all humility, identified together as the group soul, the group being, we attempt to attune to the presence of Sanat Kumara, the Lord of the world, the Lord of Venusian love, the youth of endless summers, at the heart, the very center of Shambhala. A long, silent Om inwardly as a group, imagining the group and the wider group imbued with this great energy of will, purpose, and power. Shambhala, that center through which the energies are gathered from constellations, planets, under the law of assembly for distribution to whatever aspect of our planet is in need of these energies, gathering even now the Gemini energies in. A path lies before us as a group. It is a golden path. We are not simply a collection of individuals. We are a point of tension. We are a point of light and love and power. We are together as one. And as this golden path stretching before us shortens, we, the point, travel with it, travel upon the shortening path, which leads to the heart of an indigo sun, an indigo sphere. Gradually, the path, the golden path, disappears within the sphere, where we now find ourselves, as if in the presence of the Master DK, who is an expert in all these matters of hierarchical energies, ray and solar, zodiacal, planetary energies, and we as if merge with his consciousness, allowing his consciousness to penetrate our own, so that as we rise in the consideration of these energies now available, we are supported by the deeper understanding of Master Decay. We offer ourselves to be outposts of his consciousness, that much of his consciousness with which he can infuse ours. And together, at this point of tension which we are going to consider livingly the spiritual qualities emanating from the three planetary rulers of Gemini, Mercury, the exoteric ruler revealing the nature of the pairs of opposites and their interplay, Mercury before you in yellow, the glyph of Mercury, Venus, the esoteric ruler, uniting these pairs of opposites, the glyph in orange or indigo or rose, and the earth itself, the hierarchical ruler, our field of service, to be transformed by the descent of the angels from Gemini. First, Mercury, the great link, finding all points in common, fusing us all into one network of relationship, preparing the way for his elder brother Jupiter to make a wholeness of all the things linked together. Facilitating our soul-to-soul communication, bringing the intuition which makes all things into a patterned field of unity. Thus the unity is revealed. Let us direct Mercury into the group and the wider group, creating those lines of relationship, or rather even revealing them, which will bring us into the state of intelligent unity, intuitively appreciated. Mercury in the group. Venus, the planet of the solar angels, the goddess of love and wisdom, magnetically bridging the cleavages that exist in our nature, integrating all, uniting soul and personality. revealing the great beauty of unified life, revealing the beauty of the soul. Luminous Venus, the light of love, the love of light, the fusion of knowledge and heart, the revelation of the wisdom of love. Venus in the group and in the wider group, so needed as soul seeks to emerge within humanity. And the Earth, our own planet, the field of blue and green of the second ray and the third, with the first ray latent, the field of service, the field of redemption, the coming sacred planet to which Venus and Mercury and Gemini contribute so much in the process of rendering it sacred. The beauty of our planet and of the earth that we are, receiving the redemptive rays and treading itself the path of its own glorification, our coming sacred earth. These energies in us and through us, bringing the substantial nature into a state of illumination, sacredness, the lighted sphere that we are to become, that the group is to become, that humanity is to become, that the earth is to become. Lighted with the light of love at this time. And Gemini, above all this, relating through our solar logos, the blue logos, the God of love, permeating with love every atom, Buddhi at the heart of every atom, the second ray soul of our solar logos, pervading all, and Gemini feeding that logos with the fusing second ray. Uniting, blending, fusing all. So we will open ourselves to this light of interplay, which is Geminian, revealing the basic dualities and yet fusing them, the conscious light of the relationship between the dualities, the promise of their fusion, great love wisdom ray playing through Gemini and thus through every one of the planets that expresses Gemini, Mercury, Venus, and the Earth. I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. I, the soul, recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. I wax, I grow, I glow in my soul nature. I am an effulgent being. We are, as a group, an effulgent being. Humanity is to become, in its soul nature, an effulgent being. And the personality shining not by its own light, which wanes, but shining by the light of the infusing soul. I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. And I share this effulgence with all my brothers and sisters. I share it. I, the group, share the effulgence, the radiation, the glorious light. And I, the coming effulgent soul of humanity, as a station of light, will share the light with all the forms of nature, being the bridge between the highest kingdoms and the lowest, a lighted bridge. I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. And let this be strengthened in us during the coming 13 hours before the full moon. Stronger and stronger, this effulgence, this waxing spiritual self, in the spirit of the Christ and the Buddha, who are effulgent souls, cooperating together, unifying the two hemispheres, we too act as agents of unification, bridges of light between the opposites, between the warring forces, cooperating with the great brothers in the light, the Christ and the Buddha, and even in a higher sense, Castor and Pollux, as if we are together with the Christ, invoking the Buddha. Such cooperation between them. And we, in the spirit of cooperation, appreciating why it is that the Christ preaches the last sermon of the Buddha every year at the time of the Geminian full moon. It's as if he is preaching to us the great message of the Lord of Light and the Lord of Wisdom, that message which, if followed, will fulfill the work, make possible the fulfillment of the work of the Lord of Love. As if the Christ is speaking to us right now. As if, let us hear these words that the Buddha spoke 2,500 years ago when he was handing over the head of the spiritual hierarchy, that post, to the Christ, and he moving on to still more powerful work. As if under the inspiration of the Buddha, the Christ is speaking to the members of the hierarchy and to those of us who seek to cooperate fully with these two great brothers. As the Buddha said, those who either now or after I am dead shall be a lamp unto themselves, relying upon themselves only, and not relying upon any external help, but holding fast to the truth as a lamp, and seeking their salvation in the truth alone. They shall not look for assistance to anyone besides themselves. It is they, Ananda, among my bhikshus, who shall reach the very topmost height. But they must be anxious to learn. My age is now full ripe, and my life draws to its close. I leave you. I depart, relying on myself alone. Be earnest then, O brethren, holy, full of thought. Be steadfast in resolve. Keep watch o'er your own hearts. Who wearies not, but holds fast to the truth and law, shall cross this sea of life, shall make an end of grief. When the light of gnosis has dispelled the darkness of ignorance, when all existence has been seen as void and without substance, peace ensues when life draws to its end. Peace which seems to cure a long sickness at last. Everything, whether stationary or movable, is bound to perish in the end. Be ye therefore mindful and vigilant. The time for my entry into Nirvana has now arrived. These are my last words. As if the Christ has spoken to us, spoken these words of the Buddha, let us in deep silence enter into the spirit of the Buddha's last sermon and take it in deeply. Take it to heart. With profound gratitude to the Buddha for all he has done to illumine humanity, we focus with utmost heartfulness now on the Christ, listening inwardly, imagining that we hear the Christ and the assembled hierarchy sounding the entire great invocation together. We listen together inwardly as they sound a great invocation. we imagine the Christ focusing all the spiritual aspiration of humanity in his being. And as the leader of his people and the eldest in a great family of brothers, in an act of divine love, offering up that aspiration to the Buddha and to Shambhala. And we imagine the full response of the love of Shambhala, inspired by the Solar Logos, flowing into both the hierarchy and humanity, creating a great planetary triangle through which the energies of divine solar love are circulating. And in this great flow of solar love, through Shambhala, through the hierarchy, into humanity, we look at Gemini in a new way, a fitting way given these solar energies. Our contemplative thought reaches out towards luminous Gemini, seeking to understand it as the head of the cosmic Christ and the source, really, of all that is transpiring as we human beings celebrate World Invocation Day, Great Invocation Day. The cosmic Christ, Gemini, the head of the cosmic Christ. Cosmic love entering our system, and the Christ, the one who has received, the one in our humanity who has received the cosmic touch of cosmic love, sharing it with all at this high point of love wisdom. And we pause for a moment together, all of us in the world group, for a moment of deep appreciation for the illumined, loving energies of the constellation Gemini, seeing the pillars of Gemini in yellow before our inner eye, and feeling ourselves imbued with these energies, uniting spirit and matter in the bonds of divine love. All streaming through Mercury, through Venus, the union of heart and mind, and through the earth. The full moon moment is coming. It's just 13 hours away at 11:11 and 33 seconds GMT, Universal Time. 11:11 a.m. and 33 seconds. We're in the period now. The masters are attending. They're watching for the approach of individuals and groups. And we are approaching. So we will close our meditation. This time sounding aloud together the great invocation, but as if in union with the Christ, with the hierarchy, and all disciples in the world, all together, under hierarchical inspiration, all together, we sound the great invocation. And we will pause between the verses, visualizing these energies pouring into humanity, redeeming humanity, each energy in its own way. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. I'd like to thank you all for attending this meditation. There have been 61 of us, I think. We are in the preparatory moments. To those of you who remain awake, keep intensifying your rapport with these great sources representing the love, wisdom, energy of the Christ. Staying in the flow and spreading all this to humanity through the great invocation constantly sounded. And those of you who are going to sleep, dream well. And tomorrow, well, for us tomorrow anyway, at 11:11 and 33 seconds a.m. GMT, here in Finland, 2:11 and 33 seconds. We will be celebrating the exact moment of the Gemini full moon. Some of us are planning to be up on top of a mountain at that time. We will not be broadcasting to you in any conventional way, but our thoughts will be with you and with the world group. So with gratitude, let us approach the great opportunity, and thank you for being here for this preparatory meditation, preparatory to the actual full moon. Thank you.